You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
It's late night in Bavaria, and all through the village, the grown-ups are drunk, full of beer and such swillage, while children a-tremble, hide deep in their beds, fearful that Krampus will rip off their heads and heart.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to have you for this very exciting beginning to the festive holiday season here on Creep Street. Please feel free to follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Creep Street Podcast.
Oh, yes.
Twitter, yes, we are at Creep Street Pod. We also have our Patreon where we have some great bonus content for you. And Dylan, will you please read off our top tier patrons? Please, we love these people.
Yes, these are our Creep Street connoisseurs at the $10 level. The Dream, James Watkins. The Finnish Face, Via Lungfist. The Oh So Suave, Sean Richardson. The British Bonebreaker, Bex Martin. The Heartbreak Kid, Chris Hackworth. The Tenacious Teresa Hackworth. The Vivacious Vicky McHugh. The Terrifying Taylor Lashmet. The Madman Marcus Hall. The Notorious Nicholas Barker. And a newcomer, the Count of Cool, Cameron Corliss.
Ooh, those are some sacred names, and thank you for reading them in such a hot sexual way.
That's right. Welcome, Cameron Corliss to the fray. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help support this show, just like them, you go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast to do just that.
That's right. Now, Dylan.
Yeah.
So here we are getting into the holiday spirit.
Oh, we are.
December is upon us.
Foom. I think this episode comes out on Friday the 11th. I want to say Hanukkah starts the night before, right? I think on the 10th, the night of the 10th. Happy Hanukkah to our listeners who celebrate Hanukkah. Obviously, Christmas is around the corner. That's coming.
Winter
Kwanzaa,
solstice, whatever
winter
you're
solstice,
doing.
or if you don't celebrate any of it, if you just like Happy December. Gosh,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I love it all.
To get us in the spirit, we really wanted, since this is our first Christmas holiday season as Creep Street.
This is our first Christmas as officially the Lord and Lady of Creep Street, as a husband and wife.
Yes.
As this Christmas is coming with a lot of firsts.
Exactly, yeah. So the way we wanted to make it special, we were like, what can we do to kick this off, but still keep it 100, as they say? Yeah. We want to keep it ourselves. We still want to have a little bit of a touch of excuse me, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So, Dylan, what are we talking about today? Tell me now.
Today we are talking about Krampus. This is a mean son of a bitch.
Of course, yes.
He's a mean
Krampus.
piece. He's a mean bastard.
He is so spooky scary.
He's a
Truly.
prick.
He really is.
He's a bit of a prick.
There is this thing that happens all over the world, but I'm thinking in Chicago, most years they do this thing called the Christkindl market. It's like a German outdoor Christmas market, basically. Yeah. Very, very fun. And the first time I went there, I was like looking at all this Christmassy stuff everywhere and like German, pretzels and stuff.
Right.
And then I turned my head and I see this, booth just full of the goddamn hairiest, scariest fangs.
These
these masks with these yellow ass eyes and these long tongues and these sharp ass teeth. And I was like, this does not feel like Christmas to me.
Not at all.
And then everyone there just screamed at me. I got screamed at. Everyone said, listen, it is Christmassy here in Germany. And the surrounding areas. And I said, I'm so sorry.
He's kind of become the anti-hero of Christmas. He's kind of become like the Jack Skellington, the sort of anti-hero of Christmas.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep, let me state my source.
Okay.
I dabbled around, but my main source was a book called Krampus, The History and Legacy of the Mythological Creature Who Punishes Children During the Christmas Season by Charles River Publishers.
What a title. That is long.
But that is my main source. So why don't we get started and talk? Look, everyone's excited that we're doing Krampus.
Everyone's so excited.
He's become a bit of a rock star in the last few. Well, here's the thing, and we'll talk about this in the episode. But
right. If you don't know who Krampus is yet, that's the whole point of you being here. So don't
worry about it.
Just calm down. Jesus Christ.
He's
fine.
He's kind of the it guy right now. He's kind of the it guy. I only found out about him maybe 5 years ago or so. Well,
same, yeah. I got scared at that market.
I think within the last 10 years, he's kind of gotten bigger here and elsewhere. Well, one, obviously, he's been around a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
Primarily in the Alpine region of Europe. Mm-hmm. Within the last 10 years, there's been movies coming out, that Adam Scott dark comedy with Toni Collette.
Mm-hmm.
And so only now is he kind of becoming, part of the, the pop culture zeitgeist. But he's been around a long, long time.
Let's find out about his origins as well as descriptions and accounts.
Absolutely. Well, as we know, his name is Krampus, but he goes by many names. He's known as the Christmas Devil by some. To some, he's known as the Demon Anti-Santa. People in 2020 probably, he's sort of like there's a twisted charm about him. That's why we like him. There's sort of an ironic, twisted charm to him.
Because you're like, oh, it's Christmas time and everything is so like bright and squeaky clean and like very like sweet and everything, and then all of a sudden you have this like demonic goat fucker. Well, maybe not a goat fucker, but a fucker that looks like a goat. He might fuck goats. And and it's just such an interesting dichotomy. That's interesting. You're kind of drawn to it because you're like, oh, this is completely different.
Right. Folks in 2020 might find him charmingly twisted. It's no wonder that why people used to legitimately fear him. Now, as with most things, Christianity has tried to scrub Krampus out of the Christmas legend, which has only kind of spurned him on.
Right, and we will touch more on that actually next week's episode.
Yes, when we talk about Yule.
Yule, yes. But so we'll dive into that later. But as I'm sure many of you know, early Christians would try to use like the pagan practices of the area to put that within Christianity as a way to bring it in. We'll talk more about that later, but just wanted to quickly touch on it now.
Good point. Now, because of this attempt to wipe him from history, even modern fans of Krampus today often don't know the true story. In reality, Krampus is not so much like a holiday boogeyman.
Okay.
That was created, to help parents keep kids in line.
Like this isn't an elf on the shelf situation.
He's actually kind of a staple of the Yuletide celebration. In fact, certain aspects of Krampus legend are so dark that he was actually banned by both Christian groups and politicians.
Yeah, it is.
It gets pretty dark.
It's not just like, oh, you were a naughty kid this year, so you get a lump of coal.
Right.
Which, I mean, that is true, but it keeps going.
Now, the source gives 1,000,001 examples of gods and deities from other cultures that they think inspired Krampus. And the truth is, they're probably all correct. It's probably one of those things. It's an amalgamation of things. So I won't go through every one of them, but here's a few that I thought were interesting.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones, most widely believed, that Krampus is a variation of the Norse goddess Hel. Spelled Hel. The duality of his appearance, half demon, half goat, is said to be inspired by Hel's duality. Sometimes she's depicted as a beautiful maiden from the waist up, whereas everything is dead and rotting, from the waist down.
Ooh, spooky.
Hel was appointed the overseer of Helheim, which is the Norse version of the underworld.
So she's like Hades, kind of.
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah. She made sure no one escaped, and if they did, she went and brought them back and punished them. So Hel was sort of the gatekeeper of this underworld, and she would even feast on the flesh of the wicked. Krampus, kind of a similar thing. He was sort of a guardian of the North Pole who ate naughty children.
Oh, I love that. It's just so fun. Oh my gosh, yes.
Some Wiccans also lay claim to Krampus, citing his similarities to the Celtic god Cernunnos, the horned god.
Yeah.
The dual nature between the horned god and the triple goddess is often compared to that between Santa and Krampus, which I thought was a pretty interesting way to think about it.
I think that is super interesting. And I also like it too, just overall, because there are so many cultures that have some sort of horned god to them.
Yeah.
Whether it's like Pan or whoever.
Right.
So it just kind of makes sense that all different cultures kind of have this thing. So it makes sense that how it just kind of came to be was just like such a perfect amalgamation of everything.
Right.
And then also maybe it has stuck around so much because so many cultures
Right.
have something that's somewhat similar, so they can kind of put on their own thoughts onto it, I guess.
Well, the goat especially has such a weird...
Yeah.
It has a confusing connotation.
Right.
In Christianity, obviously, it's often associated with the devil, but,
Right.
in paganism, it's not. It's quite the opposite.
Right, and I mean, and how cute are goats?
Cuter, yeah. So the goat is, I think, often when we see the goat in religious and like spiritual iconography, we often don't know how to feel because we aren't sure what it symbolizes.
Totally, especially like as
I said,
Western people, yeah. Totally.
Right.
Quick shout out to our listener, Mother of Goats,
Andrea, Mother of Goats.
Yeah.
I think that's her Instagram.
So I hope she's enjoying this goat content.
So now let's move on to the actual legend
Okay.
of Krampus. Krampus, as we know him today, probably came with the Roman conquests through Europe, specifically the ones in the 4th century CE. More and more Germanic tribes were being forced to convert to Christianity. But obviously, as with everything, certain tribes would resist,
Right.
or they would convert, but in secret do their thing.
Yeah.
So obviously, as history does, this blends cultures.
Totally.
Like how we said, so much of Christian holidays, paganism blended
Yes.
into them. It's we just see it happen here as well. The original Krampus wouldn't have had a defined appearance. His legend was passed down orally, so people would have added or subtracted qualities as it was needed for their
Nice.
specific tale.
Yeah.
Author Robert Lamb says,
Krampus's exact appearance varies depending on time, place, and available costuming materials. In fact, the more you explore the nature of Krampus, the more you come to see him as a byproduct of accumulated beliefs, traditions, and primal fears.
even artists today tweak Krampus with their own flourishes, but it's kind of been solidified.
Yeah.
We now have a kind of a somewhat defined look. This is a description of Krampus
Testify.
from the book.
The monstrous Krampus is a towering, powerfully built figure, thickly coated from head to toe in black or brown fur. The lower half of its body was that of a two-legged goat, one fitted with a cloven hoof, and the other with a sharp, yellow claws attached to a large human-like foot, as well as a long and thick tail ending in a paintbrush-like clump of fur. The upper half of its sculpted body, though covered with fur, was human, as are the arms and hands, but the nails on its opposable fingers are razor-sharp and claw-like. Menacing antlers or horns aside, the beast has a narrow face and a goat-like pointed chin, paired with round, lidless, and therefore unblinking yellow eyes, and a wide, snarling mouth, stretched from one ear to the other, packed with disconcertingly sharp fangs stained from the flesh and blood of its all-meat diet. More unnerving yet, Krampus's teeth failed to cage its slimy, seemingly unending tongue, and as such, it leaves foul-smelling, gooey trails of saliva in its path. The creature can determine a child's behavior and the purity of their inner thoughts with just a quick swipe of its tongue. Despite Krampus's unusually large tongue, the creature, according to various alpine legends, is surprisingly well-spoken. Krampus, who apparently smells of burnt coal, sulfur, and the usual aromas associated with hellfire, is also seen lugging around a lengthy chain, often attached to a miserable queue of child captives. In other depictions, it carries around this chain an accessory enforced by the Christians, so as to symbolize the binding of the devil as a weapon Cowbells are also clipped under the creature's belt, presumably to signal its arrival. Most of the time, however, Krampus is armed with twig switches, as well as a portable washtub, basket, or empty sack strapped to its back.
Whoa.
So pretty menacing. That's the overall ho-ho-ho description of Krampus.
Damn.
Cuts a pretty menacing figure.
Wow. This guy is scary, okay?
Freaky.
I really think that the fact that his, leaves trails of smelly, stinky saliva, I think that is horrible.
And
I hate it.
In that description, I think there was maybe 2 periods.
Yeah,
It was
I was thinking that too.
Whew.
But I also do like that. I like to know that even though he is heinous and disgusting and spooky and scary and has these unblinking yellow eyes, I like that they let us know that his body was sculpted.
Oh, yeah.
So he's still kind of shredded. He's still kind of hot. So underneath it all, you're still like, okay, this goat man is scary, but he's got those nice abs. Right. He's got those nice upper abs, you know?
That's right. Now, while Krampus is a fearsome creature and should be feared...
I mean, he has the muscles.
Yeah. Strangely enough, he's also described as being fair-minded and scrupulous in his judgment of a child's goodness or naughtiness.
You're not going to believe this, but I did not get that from the description.
Did not
of him
get
physically.
that vibe from him.
Yeah.
He doesn't just want to hurt any kid he can find. He has the utmost respect for good children.
Oh, okay.
But it should be known, some people's version of Krampus will actually try to bait good children into being naughty
God.
if he's having a particularly slow season.
Krampus, Jesus Christ.
And
okay.
if he can't even get a kid to do that, he might have to sustain himself on the fear of impressionable children. I'm guessing what they mean is not hurt the children, but just almost like what we said with shadow people, like the fear bong.
Yes, of course, the fear bong.
Almost like that.
It is just like a fear bong, and for those of you, just a reminder, the idea of the fear bong...
It goes all the way back to episode 1.
It does. And we've kind of touched on it here and there, but the idea is essentially that some entities kind of get their energy or their food source from people's fear.
Right.
So it's not necessarily from any sort of actual physical attack.
Right.
For example, a certain ghost scaring you all the time. Like, why is this ghost scaring me? The reason would be it's like it needs your fear to get the energy.
Right, exactly.
I.e. taking a fat rip off a fear bong, being you, being all of us, and in this case, the children are fear bongs.
People love our Shadow People episode.
It's such a fun episode.
We're going to return to it. We got to talk about Hatman. We got to dive into Hatman.
Yeah, I love the Shadow People topic. It's so weird and it's so prevalent.
If you have Shadow People stories or Hatman stories, a lot of people do, please let us know.
Yeah, we will add your account to our reporting.
So this Krampus guy.
Oh, right.
This asshole.
Fuck. But at the same time, though, I mean, he is a piece of dog shit. But at the same time, sometimes when the kids are good, he respects it and he just leaves them alone. Sometimes he's like,
game respects game.
Good for you for completing your homework. Oh, you made your bed? I won't kill your ass.
So we know, like we've said, he punishes children, right?
Right.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty about these punishments.
I was going to say, because what are the punishments? Is he scaring them? Is he just kind of giving them a little slap on the wrist? Or is he full on, ending their lives?
Let's see.
Okay.
So there's 3 tiers of punishment.
Kind of like our Patreon.
That's right.
Okay.
The lowest tier and the most common punishment handed down by Krampus are the spankings and whippings via birch rod.
Oh, yeah.
He gets to choose out the birch rod of his choice, and he just goes to town.
Ooh, yeah, that's
This is what he's most known for. This is his Ninth Symphony.
Okay,
this is
good.
Right. Now, why he uses birch specifically dates back to pre-Christian times. In some Wiccan circles, it's believed why he chooses a birch rod specifically is because of its phallic nature. The source doesn't go too much into it. I'm not really sure why, but the book says something about it. It comes from these rituals, which were, I guess, death reenactments in Wiccan culture, which we'll have to, it doesn't go in, that's all it gives you, so I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm sure it's referencing something, but I don't know what it is. The second tier of punishment is reserved for children who are prone to relapse back into naughtiness.
Oh, no.
You know, they thought they were clean. They thought they put the naughtiness behind them, but they have a, you know, they want to change, but they're in a vicious cycle, you know.
But I know it's hard because...
Repeat offenders.
Yeah, repeat offenders. You're doing so well, and then all of a sudden you get out.
Chronic
and you're
naughtiness.
around all of the same temptations and your friends, and
Right.
you're like, fuck, I really, really, really just want to fucking pull my sister's doll heads off.
So the punishment resembles one handed down by a very specific figure in German folklore, a boogeyman called Man with the Sack.
Oh.
You see, Krampus, he'd wrap his tongue around this disobedient child, scoop him up, and drop him into his basket. Scoop him right up out of their bed, drop him in his basket, and then he'd whisk them away to his secretive lair, which was apparently hidden away like a cave somewhere.
Oh, God.
And the child would be held captive for at least a year, but possibly longer, depending on the severity of the naughtiness.
And this is just for repeat offender of naughtiness?
Yes. According to some accounts, Krampus's lair is somewhere in the fiery bowels of the underworld. Buckle up.
Okay. Are
'cause
you guys buckled?
This is tier 3.
If you're driving, buckle up. By the way, you should have already been buckled.
This is for the bad boys.
Okay. Let's hear it for the boys.
This is a punishment reserved for the bad boys.
If you wanted to be good, girl, get yourself a
Yeah.
bad boy.
The third and final punishment is reserved, like I said, for the naughtiest of the naughty.
Yikes.
And it is insanely brutal.
Okay, it's worse than being in a cave for 2 years, so go on.
You see, children this bad aren't just eaten by Krampus, as that would be way too kind in his eyes.
Wow, okay, so we're at least at eating them. Got it, okay.
They are subjected to grisly torture.
Oh no.
They are maimed beyond recognition.
Oh.
Their limbs are snapped off one by one. Their eyes and ears cut off, which Krampus eats like they're fucking appetizers.
Jesus
Like they were brie and prosciutto, for Christ's sake.
I mean,
Like
yum,
you
I
were passing
guess.
around crab cakes at a goddamn
Oh
wedding.
my god, these are fucking mushroom caps to him.
This is
okay?
a fucking... They are passing around jalapeno poppers.
This is a spinach artichoke dip.
This guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
This is where he lost. This is where I fell off the Krampus train.
This is where you draw the line.
This is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Krampus. What did a child do, you piece of shit?
What could that's what I'm that's what I mean.
What
where
did a
it's
child
like,
do?
What could this child have possibly done?
How about the Ghislaine Maxwells of the
Yeah.
world, or the Epsteins? You do this to a fucking child, go fuck yourself, you fucking creep.
I understand you're a demon, and this probably isn't all within your control, but some of it's gotta be. Aren't you the offspring of hell?
Yeah,
Get it
yeah.
together. You have some self-respect, Jesus.
You see, even to call Krampus a sadist would be an understatement.
I mean, for real.
Krampus loves his job. The screams and pleas for mercy, it's music, it's poetry.
Of course
to
he
him.
loves his job.
Krampus will spend months concocting the most cruel and fiendish of torture tactics. He enjoys twisting and tweaking child's ears. He also loves to yank a ponytail clean off the head, leaving only a bloody patch of scalp.
One time I was making up a dance with my friend Nathan, and I tried to do this like backwards roll on the ground. This was like 15 years ago. I was in high school, and I lifted my head up, and I accidentally, some of my hair was still under my knee, and I
no.
ripped out like a lot of my hair, and my hairline is still kind of fucked up. Look at the right side of my head, guys. That's a little insider tip. It's a little further back than the right. Than the left.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
So I get it, kids of Krampus.
He's also quite fond of slashing open the bellies of his victims and gobbling up their innards while they're still alive.
Oh my god.
Eventually, Krampus gets tired of hearing the child scream, so he rips out their tongue and swallows it.
Oh.
When the victim can no longer be tortured, Krampus either eats them or he disposes of them. Usually he'll just feast on them, like I said, pick the bones completely clean.
Yeah.
But Krampus, his belly is not bottomless like Santa's bag of toys. Krampus understands portion control. If he isn't keen to snack on them, then he'll just dispose of the bodies by drowning them, or just dumping them in a cave or throwing them off a cliff.
Jesus.
And then both the corpses and spirits of the dead children are retrieved via a pitchfork and put aboard a spectral train bound for the lake of fire. So yeah,
This is told to children. This is told to literal
This was
children
told to
saying
children.
if they make a mistake 3
Krampus
times.
is a fucking asshole. Krampus is a piece of shit.
I like that they're not only like, Krampus will rip open your belly with his fingernail and slowly eat your guts while you're still alive. Kind of like, they're basically telling kids that, and then they say, and then when finally the sweet release of death comes and kisses you upon the cheek, we will take a pitchfork and just stab your dead body and your lingering soul and put you on a ship towards a lake of fire.
He's a piece of shit.
If you make a mistake thrice...
He's a piece of shit.
I know that they never specifically said if you make a mistake 3 times, but that's kind of my impression, because the first kind of, if you're just like naughty, you get, beaten. And then the second one is if you're a repeat offender. To me, I think that's gotta probably just be 2 times.
That's gotta draw the line.
And then what's after that? What gets you? This is intense. What could this child have possibly done?
Well, you see, there's actually a whole celebration associated with Krampus. The Feast of Krampus falls on December 5th every year. The celebration is known as Krampusnacht, which in English means Krampus night. While Krampus is associated with the Yuletide, Krampus can be seen as early as late November and will roam about until the second week of December before he returns back to the Alps and stays until next year.
I like it's kind of like a little precursor to Christmas.
I didn't realize
I kind of like
that.
that.
What was cool was I did not realize that.
Oh, I didn't really either.
I thought it was more just a Christmas. I didn't realize he had his own designated window of time.
Yeah. Now I bet he's busier and he's got to have that length of time be a little bit longer. Now he gets out there early, mid-November, and then now he's got to work through Christmas because he's famous now. And then I bet he goes back into the Alps.
He's doing press.
In I would say February, because in January he does take a vacation. Tulum.
Yeah. So Krampusnacht was meant to be spent with family. Even folks who lived out of town would return home for the feast and the lighting of the Yule log with their families.
That's fun.
Yeah. There would be meats and pastries of all sorts, lots of goodies. So, sounds like fun. It's common around the holidays, as we know, to leave out milk and cookies for Santa.
Of course.
On Krampus night, an offering had to be laid out as well. By the hearth or by the line of boots stacked at the door, children would leave baskets of salted meats or crops, and by it a chalice of wine or a tumbler of schnapps.
Oh, a tumbler. Okay.
Schnapps is said to be Krampus's favorite beverage.
Okay, interesting. Good for Krampus, I guess.
Now, while the sweet and benevolent Saint Nick wouldn't mind if you didn't leave out milk and cookies, Krampus sees it as mandatory.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been known to punish even the best of children if they forget to leave him out a snack.
Oh my God.
But believe it or not, Krampus would actually leave gifts for those well-behaved children. Often it would be a birch rod standing in the boot, just as a reminder to be good.
Here's the thing, I would not really necessarily consider that a gift, more of a threat for the following year.
That's literally like
but,
if you didn't shoot someone, but you gave them a bullet to remember or something. It's like the weirdest. It's like giving.
It's reminding them that I could kill you at any time.
This is a fucking asshole. Little Hans is gonna have a fucking complex his whole goddamn life.
Yeah, good God.
Krampusnacht, obviously, it's centered around children, but adults have a role in the fun as well.
Oh, go on.
Much like Halloween, adults dress up in costumes, made out of animal pelts, featuring masks and horns, chains, bells, torches.
God.
So they're dressed up like Krampus. They then take to the street, howling like wolves and rattling their chains, chasing children and teens, scaring them back home. The good children, of course, would already be at home, tucked away in bed, but shivering away in fear at the sound coming outside their door and outside their windows.
That is actually really cute. I know that's really bad because the kids at home and in bed are, home alone because their parents are in the streets acting like idiots, but and I'm sure they're horrified, but it's so cute thinking of them being like, because they think it's real because they hear all of them out there. And then I bet for the people out there, at least now, it's fun because it's kind of one of those things where you're like, hey, teens, get out of here, get back home. And they're like, and everyone's just like kind of like up late and like having chili, I'm assuming?
No, of course.
Oh, that sounds so fun. I want to do this.
Well, this parade came to be called Krampusschlaaf, which means Krampus Run.
Oh, yeah.
Like we said, outside the Alpine region, especially outside of Europe, it's really only been the last decade that Krampus has kind of become a figure in pop culture. Santa, like we know, synonymous with Christmas. But there was a time when Santa and Krampus came hand in hand. In the Middle Ages, there was a tradition of what they called Nicholas plays. And these essentially were stories about Saint Nick that parents would tell their children.
Oh, fun.
And in these stories, Krampus was often visiting at the same time as Saint Nick.
Yeah.
And often Krampus is seen as like the anti-Santa or like the bad guy.
Bad
which
Santa.
In many, especially modern incarnations, he is that. But back then, he was more or not a partner of Santa. How the source describes it is it was kind of a good cop, bad cop scene.
This I love. Yes.
So Santa would come in and be like, hey, Johnny, look, Hans, hey, little Hans, look, I know you're a good kid. I don't want to take you in. Look, this guy, you don't want to talk to this Krampus guy, man. He's a wild dog. I want to keep the dog on the chain. You know what I'm saying, Hans? So how this would work, parents would arrange, with their friends, other parents in the village. They would dress up as Saint Nick and as Krampus, and on the night of December 5th, typically about an hour before bedtime, they would pay a visit to the house.
Oh my gosh, bring this back.
So
this is so fun.
Right, very much a predecessor to, I'm sure we've been to parties where, our uncle or someone dresses up as Santa and all the kids go nuts or something. It's your predecessor to that sort of a thing.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that when you're a kid, you just genuinely can't, it doesn't even cross your mind that could be your uncle because you're like, well, my uncle has brown hair.
Exactly.
And so it just works.
Obviously kids love it when Santa visits, but
of
back
course.
then they weren't so pumped.
Oh no.
Even though they did love St. Nicholas, but not necessarily just because Krampus was there. What it meant was they were going to be inundated with biblical questions and that they would have to answer trivia. This was called catechism interrogation. It was like playing fucking Jeopardy, except, you might get eaten by the fucking demon if you don't answer right. So essentially what would happen was Saint Nick, he'd be the nice guy, he'd ask the questions, but the whole time Krampus is licking his chops, pacing back and forth, growling and hissing, being like, come on, let me at him. So the child would strain their brain, Krampus is taunting them, and he would tap the floor and the walls with his birch rod. Krampus would often warn the children,
err in your response, and you shall be my prize. For so long I have yearned for a companion in hell.
Oh my God!
if the child became too scared to speak, they got spanked.
Oh my, come on. You guys, someone is dressed like a demon threatening to take your child to hell, and you want him to remember a commandment or something?
Now, as kids got older, obviously they became a bit more resistant to this. That meant parents needed to up the ante.
Oh no.
They needed to up the firepower.
Oh God.
Krampus would sometimes loot the cupboards, smash a plate or two even for effect.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Scaring them straight.
This is really like a Scared Straight program.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like this. Okay.
Perhaps he would even fiendishly, like with the adult women in the room, he'd sort of pretend to flirt with the women.
Oh my God.
And then, or if there were other adult men in the room, so typically like older siblings who were old enough to be in on it,
Yeah.
or the men in the family, they would get into scuffles with Krampus where it would look like Krampus had the upper hand.
Oh
Like,
my
oh
God.
no, that's my dad, and
And he's able to beat my
he's able to get my dad, like that sort of a thing,
This is so fucked up, but I also can't wait to do this for our child.
This is the most horrifying thing.
Yeah.
And then if a child did particularly well, passes with flying colors, Krampus would suddenly dash toward them and grab them, but the bishop or Saint Nick would step in and wrestle the child away from him and banish Krampus back to hell.
Okay, well, I think it's a good ending, but I don't like that they still get attacked when they do
Yeah.
well. That part is scary, but at least they get saved. That must feel fun.
The practice of doing this, not nearly as prevalent today, but it still happens. In fact, some parents swear by it. They believe these practices improves their child's chances of becoming responsible, respectable citizens. This whole process has a name. It's called Erzenhung. And in 1993, a professor of social anthropology at the University of Stockholm named Karen Norman conducted a study on the evolution of Saint Nick and Krampus and this whole concept of Erzenhung. And here is what Professor Norman writes.
Erzenhung is regarded as the process of separating the person from an amorphous nature, the good from the potentially evil, through a technique of teaching and learning that combines intricate forms of praise and punishment. It operates progressively through the institutions of family, kindergarten, school, and church. Notions of order and freedom are closely linked. People believe that through proper upbringing and education, a child will become a socially acceptable being, an orderly and free person. It is only through this process of upbringing that one can become human, or a real or true person.
So, as with most things we've covered, the spread of Krampus largely due to Christianity. The Catholic Church's campaign to erase him kind of only made it spread farther, like most pagan
Ain't that the
things.
way? That's always what happens.
Krampus probably came to the United States, obviously not nearly as prevalent here, but probably came to the United States in the 19th century with families who immigrated from that region who brought it over. Apparently it was common around the holiday season. Families, especially like in the Pennsylvania region, they would
Right.
write each other Krampus cards rather than Christmas cards. It's sort of like
that's
an
fun.
inside joke. But it's funny, today Krampus is often, I guess, closely associated with the BDSM
Whoa!
world. There was, in my source, it was talking like in 1923, the Austrian government banned these images of Krampus. They were like Christmas cards or like greeting cards, but they would have these sort of like sexually suggestive
Right.
images of him. Like, you know, he'd have a scantily clad woman bent over his knee and he'd be spanking her.
Right, like a pinup girl.
A pinup girl, or like there was one of like a woman on her knees in front of him. So it's just
Right.
kind of like literally the ugliest creature you can imagine somehow also took on this sort of sexual
Right.
nature for some reason. So fascinating, the evolution of this character. What a fucker. And here's
What
the
an
thing.
absolute chode.
What could a child have fucking done
Oh my god, I know.
to deserve to get like
That is just so extreme. But I really do like the kind of Krampus where he's with Saint Nick and they go to the houses. I kind of like that. That's kind
Right.
of fun. Like, I know the kids aren't in on it, so they're scared, and so like that's you know what can you do? But I like the idea of just some adults being like, the neighbor down the street is like actually attacking my uncle or something. That's just it's just neighborhood fun.
all right, well, citizens of the Milky Way, that is going to wrap it up for Krampus.
Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. As always, if you want to support this show, go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast. My name is Dylan Hackworth,
I'm Maureen Bogey.
and this is Creep Street. Citizens of the Milky Way, good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.